I'm just checking that voice is working. Can everybody hear? Anybody hearing voice? Shorty, Utah, anybody? Rain? Kristin? Okay, cool. Nobody's talking, so I thought I'd open it up and see if voice was working.
Yep, we can hear you. About time to get starting. And yeah, you can go ahead and open a translator there, Rain. Let's see. Tabs open. Alright, well, welcome everybody. See, we got some new faces. Welcome, welcome. Just going to go through our usual disclaimer thing. This is generally an open Q&A session for you guys. You can answer questions for what myself and my team do. But be aware there's certain things that we can't discuss or answer, such as, stuff about abuse appeals, warnings, suspensions, terminations, information or outcomes of, investigations of abuse reports, that kind of thing. So there's going to be some stuff we can't answer, but we'll do our best to, address what we can and help guide you guys with any questions or how to approach certain situations. And you can some of that. Yeah. I think that's to the thing. Also, as who mentioned a presentation? Still presentation this time, but you guys might have noticed there's some funky seating in the background. We are probably going to be doing some AR class presentations coming up soon-ish. So there's no official date on those yet, but once there is, it'll be plopped onto that wiki page there. So that should be coming soon-ish. Other than that, I don't think there's much else for me, so the floor is yours. Also, you don't have to voice if you don't feel comfortable doing so. You're more than welcome to type and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I will leave it to you guys for any questions you may have.
I want to bring up to the topic of support for in Arabic. Are you aware that Arabic does not like you can't just copy Arabic without a HUD because type it into local chat, it writes backwards. Then if you copy and paste it as support people with issues with local chat, if there's an abuse report or something, it winds up backwards. As a result, people have license to write and do and say pretty much anything in Arabic without any kind of ability from the lab to look at it or even translate. So I was wondering if you had any ideas of how to go about translating it, or maybe using the HUD, or maybe just hiring an Arabic support person, since there are a lot of people with Arabic backgrounds.
Yeah, sometimes that's a thing. Sometimes we come across where there's just a language barrier where we're just like, we have no clue what this says. But it really depends on what they're doing. Sometimes we might not even need to see their chat. They need like chat and a screenshot to to identify what they're doing. We'll make our best effort to try and translate on our end, but obviously we can only do so much since majority of our people are English speaking. We do have some people who are fluent in other languages, but yeah, it's a tricky one, that's for sure.
There's rapid buying and selling of Linden. There is, and many, like anybody who wants to insult somebody or say something that's harassment will do it in Arabic to one Arabic person to another, and there's just nothing done about it because, like I said, if you copy and paste it out of like the chat log, you wind up with gibberish. So you have to use a HUD, get it to where point. Something where would it be possible to look? There are so many people, and they are a lot of our especially in skill gaming, there's a lot of them participating in skill gaming. So they do, compared to the size of the community, spend a lot of Linden world as far as like just being around thousands of Linden outside of skill.
You're breaking up just a little bit, so I'm catching every other word.
I'm saying that there are people who spend a lot on Second Life from that community. So is it possible to look into hiring an Arabic support person who could translate like their concerns that community has? Because that's been brought up to me repeatedly by a lot of people. That they're not being supported because there's no ability to translate their language.
Yeah, I don't know about that specifically. I mean, that's not necessarily my call. That would probably come higher up from if we were to hire someone specifically to translate that kind of thing. But really, no matter what language someone speaks, if they're possibly breaking the rules, feel free to report them. We'll look as much as we can. Sometimes they might be doing something that we can clearly identify what they're doing, without having to look at a screenshot from the chat, or it really just depends on what they're doing. But yeah, it's definitely a tricky one and definitely a challenge we try and balance as best we can.
I will tell you that there's constant buying and selling of Linden through phone cards, through wire transfers in that community. Just posted an openly. Were Americans to do that, they would be immediately banned, but this goes on every single day, everywhere. As you mentioned, every single.
Yeah, if you see that, feel free to report it. That would probably be something our fraud team would actually handle. Especially if they're posting like any sort of websites, or there could be like some sort of a link or identifier that team might be able to look at and be like, yep, this is what they're doing, and be able to shut it down. Because that's definitely no bueno, and we do not like that when people do stuff like that.
Zen said, like if it was us doing it, we'd immediately be ejected and banned for life. So they need to be held out to the consequences of them breaking the TOS.
Oh yeah, totally. I completely agree. But it's just a matter of can we find them? Can we prove it? And all that fun stuff. Someone could report something. Hey, they're doing this. If we look at it, we're like, I don't see that they're doing it. But the language barrier can be really tricky. But yeah, like I said, if you see it going on, report it, and we'll either us or whatever team handles whatever it might be. If it's a fraud thing, they'll look into it. If it's abuse thing, we'll look into it. But we're going to do everything that we can to investigate it properly and see if we can figure out what they're doing, and if they're doing something that's violating the terms of service, we'll take the appropriate action.
Okay. And another unrelated topic, can you clarify the rules around sharing accounts? Is that something that's completely unallowed if someone logs into your account? Because
that's a big no-no. You should never let anybody log into your account, especially account sharing. Not only does it put your account at risk, it's just a bad idea. So usually when we see people doing it, we'll usually hold the account, and then we'll let them know, be like, hey, we noticed you're sharing your account. Please don't do that. Just don't. It's a bad idea. It usually never ends well.
Is there a way to do it like in an allowed way for work purposes?
There's might be. If you could, I think if you submit a support ticket, we might be able to find it. I know in certain circumstances, usually involving when we unfortunately get reports of someone who's passed away, and either a family member or maybe it's our business partner or somebody, they want to take over the account to just try and manage their assets or maybe keep the business going or something like that. There's a bunch of documents and a whole process that we go through for that actually has to go through our legal team and stuff like that. I'm not sure about business purposes. It might be a similar one, but I'd have to double check. But in general, if you're account sharing, and just don't do that.
No, I'm not. I was just. See, I have another account. This one is out of the question for sharing. It's a studio account, but I have another account, and for example, I would like to have somebody put up a network of ad boards for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, if I let them do it on their account, if that person then something comes to them, then I lose the whole network of ad boards. Something along those lines. Or I would have to do it all myself, and hard as it is, it's very time consuming.
Oh yeah, totally understandable. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. You can always submit a support case, and that way we can talk through our channels and stuff like that, and see if that's something that could be done. But because there might be a process on that, but I'm not really sure. I'm only really familiar with the deceased resident process, which is always a bit tedious and kind of depressing sometimes. But yeah, maybe. But general rule of thumb, at least for us, when we see account sharing, it's usually people who are they should really not be doing it. Really, no. Or someone's like, "Yes, my friend gave me this account, and I want to reset all the stuff." I'm like, "No, you can't do that." But yeah, my best advice for that one just to create a support case. That way we can do a little bit of research and look around and see if we can definitively answer that one for you. That should be remove terminology. I'm pretty sure it shows up as Linden assessment. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is, unless it's recently changed. But that's how it should show, as far as I'm aware.
I believe the avatar that does that is Recovery Linden.
Yeah, it might be through. You might see it through Recovery, but it should be a Linden assessment.
Hello, Kristin. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We have recently encountered, actually I'll rephrase it so it's not, what happens when someone says they're going to commit suicide and you believe that they are actually probably really in danger because it seems sincere? Is there policy for that? Is it to do with governance? Who do we tell?
There actually is. Usually, every once in a while we'll come across it. Usually if you come into support, it doesn't have to be through governance. If you come into live chat or anything like that, just let some team know. And if we will look into it, and if we think that it's definitely a valid, because we take that stuff really seriously. If we believe they're in some sort of danger, we'll reach out to our legal team and get like a wellness check. Just to see, make sure everything's okay. We've had that happen a couple times where we're just like, oh, we need to get this person, get them checked in on, make sure they're okay and that stuff. So if you ever see that, you could report it, but again, that it could take a few days for us to get the report, and if someone's life is potentially endangered, that's probably not the best idea. So if you can access live chat, you're more than welcome. You could always submit a support case, that kind of thing. Obviously, if you happen to know any information about them, like if it's like a friend of yours, that kind of thing. If it's just someone that you just encountered and you don't know anything about them, this might be hard to do. But if you know something about them and kind of know where they live, that kind of thing, you could probably reach out to their local authorities. But most people, they just, it's just like a stranger on the other side of the world. They don't know much. But yeah, you can contact support, and we'll do what we can to make sure that they're checked on and that they're doing okay.
Thank you. Didn't know that, so that's something, and we can do that even if it's. What happens if it's probably not sincere, just someone going around saying I'm going to kill myself? Presumably you want it reported anyway, because otherwise we are the barometer to judge whether it's sincere or insincere.
Yeah, it can be tricky. We've seen some instances where people are just saying that and they're not really serious about it. It's like, come on, really? You don't joke about that, or they're just trying to get some sort of attention. I've seen people fake their deaths to come back. I'm like, what? Why are you doing this? But we'll usually go and check around and do our due diligence to do our best to see if it's a legit threat, or they're just like, I'm just gonna do this for attention, or that kind of thing. But usually when someone's serious about it, we're like, oh yeah, this person needs some checking in on. But yeah, it can be difficult to ascertain, but we'll check around.
Yeah, we had no doubt this person was sincere, but they're still going, so that's a good thing. And as far as people faking their deaths, yes, we actually had one of our merchants die the day they were due to pay their rent, and we thought we'd leave the shop because we didn't want to close it down the day they died or anything. And about 3 days later at midnight, they were in there rearranging their store. So I know what happens.
Yeah, unfortunately, people think that's a good idea. I'm like, no. And I mean, I've even had, like, when I pop in the world, I've had people who just straight up saying that they're gonna, commit suicide. I'm like, oh, no. And usually if I'm present, I'm like, here's some resources for you. You pull up, the suicide hotlines and websites and all that stuff. So if we're in world and we see that stuff, we obviously try to provide as much help as we can. Granted, we're not really, trained to deal with that kind of thing, like in the sense that the hotlines and the websites and places that people can reach out to get help if they're dealing with those issues. But we do know of some resources and can help direct people to go get help, or at least in cases where someone's like, this person said that they're going to commit suicide, and we think it's valid enough where we need someone check in on them if possible. Sometimes we can't ascertain where they are, who they are, to even get that, but we'll try our best to make sure people get the help they need.
Okay, thank you. That's most useful.
No worries. You're welcome. All right, we got about 40-ish minutes math left of time, so if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to shoot them out here and do our best to answer them. There's really nothing that we've been doing differently. We have a set, policy and instructions on how to deal with certain things, depending on what they are, and we go by those guidelines, depending on what they are. Of course, there's always, like, the curveball weird incident that we're like, I've never seen this before, so we collectively get together and try and figure out what's going on and decide what's the best action. But nothing's changed, really. Not that I am aware of. Unless someone's, unless it's one of those, weird instances where it's not really a common issue that we, it's not like the usual griefing or harassment or spam, that kind of stuff. Those things are pretty routine. So there's nothing different that I'm aware of. I mean, if there's like a big thing that's, that might come down the pipeline for my team to suddenly start handling or action differently that might have an impact to the community, there's probably going to be some sort of, outreach, maybe by the other support teams and just a collective effort to, inform people, be like, hey, heads up, if you do this, it's no bueno. But really, there hasn't really been anything new policy-wise for us that we would need to, announce in the community, that kind of thing. And yeah, the group conference grouping stuff has toned down a bit. Usually when that pops up, they make the mistake of looping me in there. I'm like, oh, hey, sup? Oh, right, yeah. So usually the term service covers a lot of things of like what we can and do and do not do, like within our scope. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we will, enforce that stuff. Like especially with sexual content and activity, we all know that's a pretty big thing in Second Life. People enjoy that content, and that's completely fine. We only enforce rules on that when it's on regions that aren't appropriate for it, like someone who's got all sorts, they're just boning on the front lawn in a G-rated region. That's not a cool thing. It will enforce that, of course, but if someone's in an adult region doing adult things, that's fine. But yeah, if there had to been like any like changes to that, like if we suddenly were like, nope, this is suddenly not allowed in these regions, then there'd probably be a heads up, because that'd be a pretty big change for us too. But yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. There's always something like, there's things that we could enforce, but, maybe depending on how people use our platform, we're like, well, as long as they're doing this, this, and this, it's not really a problem. Don't have to. Also, it has to depend on what we feasibly can enforce. We have a relatively small team, so there's only so much we can do. I mean, alright, you got about 30 minutes left, so we try to stay as consistent as possible, Diamond. That, of course, doesn't say that there are mistakes that are made, because we are human, contrary to popular belief. We're not all robots, maybe partially. But we do try to keep things very consistent, and that's also why we have the appeal process. So if there is, someone was like, oh, I totally misunderstood this, or maybe we're a little bit too harsh on something, the appeal process is in place so that we can review what happened, and be like, oh yeah, this was totally our bad, here you go, and be free, that kind of thing. One prime example, there is has it popped up recently that I can recall, but there is a griefing object that people would, get attached to themselves, and it just spews objects everywhere they go, and, to us it looks like they're grieving a ton of regions, but in reality they're actually a victim, and those can sometimes cause a little bit of confusion. Now, fortunately, we've identified what that object is, and we can tell whenever it's being used. The person who's, spreading it everywhere is usually a victim, that kind of thing. But yeah, we try to keep as consistent as possible, and I'm really big on consistency anyways. I definitely don't like it when it's like, okay, well, we did it this way, and then you went and did this, don't do that, kind of thing. So, and that is correct, Torek. If an agent has action in account, they cannot handle that appeal. So that's how that process goes.
Kristin, I have a question about bots and traffic generation. What is the policy, and is there any plan to stop people from doing this, and what to do when we see it?
So if you do come across bots that are used for gaming traffic, definitely report those. We do look into those and action them. I've done those a few times. They are a pain. So usually when we find those, we'll hold the accounts, try and find who owns the bots, and educate them on, hey, you can't do this. Please set them to scripted agents, that kind of thing. They're really, I don't really know of any ways to stop. I mean, just not much we can do to stop someone from going, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of bots and I'm going to put them here. That's their decision, and of course their decision has consequences if they do that. So if you do see them, just feel free to report them. Sometimes we will come across them, report, and we'll go to the region they're not there. So if you happen to realize that they might be popping up during certain times of day, that could be helpful information. So yeah, as much information as you can provide, especially a good screenshot that shows them all. It's always nice too, so we can make sure we can get all of the bots that are there, if they happen to be there when we're there.
There is a problem heading your way, though, Kristin, and that is that at some point they want to, when they spin down regions because there's no people on it, they want to spin them down if there are bots on it. So you're going to have people with a bot that's not registered as such to keep their region spun up to speed.
Oh, that should be fun. Yeah, I've been seeing some a little bit more frequent traffic bot reports a little bit. There's always something that get reported anyways because people think it's a good idea and it never is. But yeah, we'll definitely be prepared if we see some more. But yeah, if you see them, just report it. Let us know. We'll take it out. We'll check it out.
I believe bots are allowed if they're registered, but if they're not registered, then you're just using it for traffic generation. That's not allowed.
Right. If you haven't set as a scripted agent, they actually don't count towards traffic. Though, depending on what they're using the bot for, even if it is registered, it could give them some problems. Like, we get some people who use bots for spamming and that kind of thing. So even if it is registered, we're like, you don't want to do that.
Has there been any more talk about having an agent status shown in profile? It would be so handy.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm trying to remember if there's been any JIRAs on it. I might have to go do some digging if it's something that exists or not. But nothing I've heard about it. But that would probably be really handy for people who want to, report bots. Oh my god! I don't know if you can hear. Yelling.
It's also handy for the owners as well, because if you set up an account and you forget to throw that switch, you've had it, haven't you?
Yeah, totally. I can definitely see some uses for it. But yeah, I'm not aware of any changes for that coming down the pipeline. I don't remember any cheers off the top of my head. But yeah, I could definitely see that being totally useful. So it might be worth a little feature request.
Oh, I've got about 5 in at the moment. You want me to do another one?
All right, you might run into your cap. No, I don't think there's a cap. But yeah, let me look on that, and I'll see. I'll do some research and digging and stuff like that whenever I have a moment. Are we talking about those weird, I think a lot of the time when we see them, accounts or bots that just pop in for a few seconds and they leave. They pop in and they leave and they're just all over the place. Sometimes we see those they're just scanning the land. They're mostly really harmless. They're just, popping in just to collect some random information and they pop off, which sounds a little weird, but they're collecting anything that's any kind of public data for whatever purposes that they use. Usually they're pretty harmless, though we've had some cases where someone had a bunch of these and they're just popping into someone's kitchen and we're like, that's not cool, that's creepy. So yeah, you could definitely report those, and if they're becoming a bit of a problem, we'll look into it. And we've had instances where we've actually had to reach out to the person and be like, "Hey, so we've noticed your bots are being weird and creepy. Can you not do that?" And usually they're pretty cooperative, and they're like, "Oh, let me, make some tweaks to it, and make sure it's not there, and all that stuff."
Yeah, I suppose they could be used almost almost like a denial of service attack too. That never occurred to me, but that could happen. Somebody could like flood your region with a bot.
Oh yeah, and if they're doing that and abusing the region resources and just preventing people from getting out and just messing with stuff, definitely report those because that's not cool. That's never a great thing. Even if they're not even using bots to do that, if you get people actually doing that to prevent people from entering for the sake of just blocking people out of there, that's not cool. But yeah, it could be various things. Like Torek said, they could just be programmed to go to a region that isn't there anymore, which is a little weird. Some people just don't, they're not really as great and then on top of their bots as we would like them to be. So sometimes the bots aren't really smart, so they do stupid things, and people are like, why is there a creepy bot just in my living room? I'm like, meh, because someone doesn't know how to script their bots correctly. But yeah, you can definitely report those, and we'll take a look, and if, there's a need for us to reach out to them, or maybe additional action, depending on what they're doing, what they're being used for. We'll definitely investigate all that stuff and take whatever action that's appropriate and stuff like that. Are you asking if we have any involvement with updating those flag categories? If you're asking if we review marketplace flags, oh yeah, we do that. If a listing is flagged for possible violations of the marketplace guidelines, we do look into those, which are always a joy. No, they don't handle any of the flags. So maybe updating the actual categories of the flags they might handle. But reviewing the actual flagged listings or reviews, that kind of thing, that's what my team handles. So, if someone has an item up there that's, say it's like item listing spam, they have the same item listed a bajillion times in their store and they get flagged for it, we're the ones that review those. That's interesting. I wonder if it doesn't clear the on your end, because we're pretty on top of those. It can take some time to get through. Like with our abuse reports, there's a lot of them, so it could take a little bit of time to look in there. It's also not quite as much information as we would like with the flags. So sometimes it's just a matter of just staring at it and be like, is there anything that jumps out at us? But yeah, we usually check them, every day. Though, depending on how quickly we can get through them, really just depends on how many are in there already, our general workload, how many other things we have going on, that kind of stuff. So it's interesting, it's still showing flagged on your end. Don't know why.
Kristin, I've actually, in my 10 years in a cell, over 10 years, I've never met somebody from China here, and I go around a lot of places. Does the Great Firewall block SL? Is that what's going on?
I've actually seen, quite a few Chinese residents. I don't think I've come across any communities in the world, but I have seen, people who come walking in from China and stuff like that. I'm not really sure why maybe you don't see as many. Could be maybe it's not popular, or it could be, the climate there. Could be a lot of factors, but there are some residents that I've seen, but I can't really say for sure why they don't pop in or why you don't see too many. Yeah, I think there's also I think it's a Chinese training. It's set up for, I think it's for a medical school or something, but it's made for Chinese students that come up aware of just relatively recently. But yeah, there's pockets of all sorts of people all around the world. What's the great thing about this job, I find places that I didn't even realize existed, and people popping in from an island in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, you have internet? And what? This is a place that exists? What is this? Oh man, Second Life through satellite internet must be to pay. But people gotta do what they gotta do to get their Second Life fix. Probably not doing a lot of moving around. All right, got about 10 minutes-ish left, so if anybody has any last-minute questions and all that fun stuff, feel free to ask. Oh man, dial-up would have been a nightmare. Oh, dial-up. I can just hear that noise echoing in my brain. In fact, I think I had someone contact a few years ago that was running on dial-up. I'm like, how? Why? What are you doing? Jesus. What? How do you function? Do you know what year it is? Are you a time traveler?
Oh Lord, I remember those days of dial-up.
If anybody is IMing me, I'll get to you privately, of course, whenever I have a moment. Sometimes I don't have the time to do it during this meeting, but if there's anything that you want answered publicly, feel free to, type it in here, or that kind of thing. But if it's, a private thing that you don't want addressed out in the open, I'll get to that in a bit. See you later, Lucy. All right, does anybody else have any other last minute questions? If not, we will wrap it up since we only got a few minutes left. I mean, if y'all want to party, have at it. Get plenty of room here. There's also a creepy shack if you want to use it here somewhere. There's a hidden cave. There's a little tent, a boat. There's all kinds of stuff on here. I always forget what's here. Yeah, it's just it's not too far from here, so if you want to go exploring, feel free. I always forget where the actual cave entrance is, so I'm always like bumping into it, like, how do I get in? I was debating on using it for a presentation, but I'm like, nah, that might be too claustrophobic. It'd be cool, but a little claustrophobic. Alright, well, oh, you found it? I'd give you a prize, but I don't have anything other than a Linden bear, so... and I don't know if I've given you mine or not. There aren't bears hidden on the region. That was going to be a plan, but if anybody wants a Linden bear, just let me know and I can give you mine. All right, give me a second. I'll find it in my hot mess in inventory. I did, and it looks like a hot mess. Oh, I hate this mouse I have right now. It's so janky. I think everybody who wants one. If anyone wants one, just feel free to shoot me a message. That way I don't miss anybody, and I can get it on over to you whenever. You're very welcome. Oh yeah, forgot about that one. I don't think they're modifiable. We try to be pretty careful with that. We don't want issues like the party hat. Party hat, man. Oh no, not ever. No. Do I even want to know what a pong dance is? Alrighty, well, I think it's time to wrap up for now. I gotta run to lunch in a bit, but thank you guys again for joining. It's always fun, as usual. Be sure to check up on the user group wiki page for any updates for future dates for these meetings. So I usually update that when I can, barring any other complications or things that might delay this meeting. But also keep an eye out for potential abuse report class that might be coming up soon. We'll definitely put that up there so people can mark that on their calendars in advance and pop on in. And also, if anybody has any questions or concerns that can't wait until the next meeting and you just need someone to talk to about a thing, feel free to message me. If I'm not online, I'll usually get back to you as soon as I can. And I'll do my best to help guide you and answer any questions you got. So, hope everybody has an awesome day, and you're welcome. Thanks again for joining. Until next time.